we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Screen Heroes, and we're going to be talking about the Captain America comic book twist and DC's Rebirth #1 tonight. Everyone want to kind of go around and introduce themselves?
No.
No? Okay. Well, I think our listeners, at the very least, would prefer if they knew who was here.
Just the normal crew. If they're listeners, then they know us.
But it's just the three of us this time. It hasn't been the three of us in a while.
There's going to be a lot of empty silence where we're expecting somebody to
Whatever,
interject.
we're just going to hug. We're just going to be like,
for an hour? I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for that.
This will be, that's a little bit more helpful for the visual people, I think. Oh, no.
What are you doing?
Sorry.
Derek's running the podcast.
Are you going to watch the Twitch?
I was bringing up the chat for Twitch, and an ad came up, and my speakers were on.
You're watching last week's episode.
I am watching last week's episode. I'm working on it. It just loaded on its own. I'm just going to go to our...
We are prepared.
By the way, I'm Ray.
Yes, she is.
We're good. I got this. We're live. Everything is good.
Everything's great.
We have Ray. We have Ryan. I'm Derek. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Adequate, yes.
I'm good. Adequate?
How was your holiday?
It was a normal day like any other.
Did you have to work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Aww.
So I figured you'd be more than adequate since you told me earlier today that you ordered some special drink of yours.
Three cases of Ecto Cooler.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my nostalgia is real for me. Like I
think
have
it's
to,
real
tangible.
for all of us.
I have to drink it.
You
I have to
guys
be
spent a
transported to
collective
1992.
$200 the other day on Ninja Turtles.
Oh my goodness!
I
Don't
was
even get me
talking
started on
about-
that. But yeah, that was a good investment.
Yeah.
Turns out they're like $400 on eBay now. So.
Oh sweet.
And let's not forget that I have bought like 3 to 4 cans of Surge every time I've seen them since it's come out.
At least mine isn't Surge.
Yours is
Mine
juice
is a
box.
juice
Yours is a
drink.
juice box.
Okay, mine's healthy. Ish.
Right,
You're
right.
both gonna get diabetes
We're
next
gonna
month.
die at age 35.
I think Surge says 1% real juice. So.
That's true.
No,
that
it
actually
says-
might be more than high C. I'm not
It
sure.
says less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Still might be more than high C.
All right, my bad.
We are not endorsing
anyway,
Surge
we're-
or
or
High C.
High
But
C.
pay us, and we will.
But, we do, we would appreciate those
I'll drink an
sponsors.
Ecto Cooler right here every episode.
I would exclusively drink Surge.
The rest of his life.
I would not.
He will drink it straight out of the slug's butt.
Is that where it comes
That's
from?
Slurm.
it's Slurm.
That's Slurm, yeah. Futurama
Basically the
reference.
same thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly what they were spoofing, by the way.
Harley Joker wants to say you're welcome for the Ninja Turtles. So that is a friend of ours on chat on Twitch. You can always watch us live on Tuesday nights at twitch.tv/griddaily. But our buddy is going to San Diego Comic-Con again. We're not jealous or anything. But he was nice enough to help Ryan and I out getting a couple exclusive Ninja Turtle collectible action figure / statue things.
And I get nothing.
They're really action
They're
figures.
just action
But they're
figures.
never going to move because I'm going to put them on a shelf somewhere.
They're never going to move because they're going to stay in the box.
So they might as
for
well
me.
be statues. This was kind of
Absolutely.
Nothing.
So thank
Absolutely
you.
nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
I get nothing.
Mine will probably go up on the shelf here on the set. I think. But,
Nothing.
Did you want Shredder and the Foot Soldiers?
I kind of want Shredder. Shredder's never had a good action figure release.
It's too much money though.
I know, but I don't want 3 foot soldiers. As much as
That
I
was
like
the thing.
beating up foot soldiers.
If it was like Bebop and Rocksteady or Krang,
Leatherhead.
or anything like it, that would have been cool. So, all right. Anyway, moving on. But he did say that he's bringing Rey a Chris of her choice.
Yes.
So
of the Marvel Chris's, I'm
The
guessing,
Marvel
or
Chris's.
the Star Trek Chris,
or the walking kind.
I do like the walking, talking Chris.
Anyway, so before we kick off our big 2 topics, I figured we'd touch on a couple points of interest, news pieces, current events that are going on.
Non-gorilla related.
Yeah, no political stuff. We don't do that here, but
by God.
there are still controversial things like the Captain America twist. And first one I think that would be kind of interesting is today, Tuesday, it was announced that Rogue One, a Star Wars story, is going through some pretty substantial reshoots.
4 weeks of reshoots.
4 weeks of reshoots.
That's almost filming a whole new movie.
It's pretty intense, right?
Guys, if we base this on Suicide Squad's reshoots, then this movie is going to be terrible. The Star Wars universe is in trouble. We should all panic. The DCEU is going to collapse. The Star
Mass
Wars
hysteria,
EU is
dogs and cats living together.
I'm not freaking out about it. I'm a little disappointed based on the reasoning. The latest article I read, and I'm drawing a blank on the source, so I apologize for that, but they said that Disney felt that the movie was too much like a, quote, war film.
Oh, no.
And they wanted to...
Oh, no. Star Wars movie is a war film?
How horrible.
Now...
Like, are we talking Star Wars Episode 4 like a war film or Saving Private Ryan? Because there are two different kinds of war films.
There's 7 official Star Wars films out today, and one of them is actually called Star Wars Attack of the Clones, right?
Right.
It was a war, right? The Clone Wars cartoon. Yeah. Like, there have been wars in canon. This is during a war. It's the rebellion. You can't rebel. Like, I mean, it makes no sense to me.
So here's what I have to say about that, and I feel like I might get some shit from either you guys or some other people, but I feel like you can't have a female lead a war film. You can't have a female.
You can't?
I believe that you can, to be honest.
I mean, what's Wonder Woman gonna do?
Yeah, no joke.
I truly believe that you can. I think that there are some, albeit misogynist, people in power. And just like they said that Iron Man 3 can't have a female villain because women don't play with dolls.
Right.
You can't have a woman lead a war. So it's going to end up being like this buddy-buddy comedy.
Yeah, let's hope that's not the case.
That's my theory, that they're only doing it because Jen is the lead and not like Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
That's my theory.
That is probably correct. My brain never jumped to that because I haven't had to deal with prejudice against my gender at all in my life. So, you know.
I was just thinking that maybe it was just being kind of dark, and because it's mostly characters, the way it came out.
I mean,
that could be.
And it's mostly characters we don't know as well. I mean, versus like, you know, The Force Awakens had some pretty dark moments, but it was also the characters that there
were some familiar to us already, right. So we could give them passes because we knew their characters.
So, I don't know. Interesting.
That could be. I don't know. I don't want it to be that. I want it to be the rather, hey, let's lighten things up a bit, instead of women can't be in war.
Well, Harley's opinion over here is that it's meant to be a war film. It doesn't focus on the Skywalkers or their messed up bloodlines, so let the film be. And I'm kind of looking forward to that, a Star Wars film that doesn't focus on the Skywalker family. As excited as I am to see Luke in action, hopefully in Episode 8, it would be cool to see some fresh characters.
You mean he's not just going to stare?
I assume he's going to be Yoda, right? Like, he's got to train Rey, so
Rey's going to carry him around on her back?
Yes!
In a backpack?
There's already some memes of that, and they look fantastic. Daisy really can do it.
There's no other Yoda. Yoda is Yoda.
Yoda is Yoda.
Luke can't be Yoda.
What if the Henson Corporation made a puppet of Luke Skywalker? Would you
I'd be more on board.
Frank Oz was reportedly on set to record some audio.
Don't tease me like that.
Actually, I was thinking they might have a Yoda Force ghost at some point, or some maybe flashback or something.
Oh, I'd love that.
All right, so anyway, moving on to another piece. X-Men Apocalypse came out this past weekend.
It did.
We will be having our podcast review of that next week.
And we just had our review come out today online, so you can check out the grid.
And that's yours, right?
Yes,
so that's your opinion.
Mine. Anytime I do a movie review, I do ask the contributors for their opinion and try to take that in so that it's not completely 100% biased towards my viewpoint. Fair enough. I am the pen holder, so.
Okay.
So it was her viewpoint.
So in addition to the X-Men Apocalypse film, it was announced today on Tuesday that FX gave the green light to a new X-Men universe TV show, Legion.
That's not surprising.
It's been rumored for a while.
Yeah, considering both Marvel, DC, and now Fox are trying their damnedest to keep a hold of all their properties and not let anybody else get a hold of them, or have other people control their synchronized universes, it makes sense that Fox would try this. There were rumors of multiple TV shows hitting the Fox network, but because Fox is very popular for destroying dramas, I imagine FX would do much better.
Probably. I usually like FX shows. So.
Yeah, there's been some really good ones.
Sons of Anarchy stayed on FX for, 6-7 years?
Well, Nip Tuck was great for a while. It went a little off the rails towards the end of the show's run, but...
It's huge. either of those shows would have been on the Fox network, it's a good chance they would have been canceled in their first or second season.
And they would have been very different. A show like Nip Tuck couldn't have done what it did on a regular basis on Fox.
Neither could Sons of Anarchy. So Legion opens the doors for Fox for new territory. They could be a little darker because they don't have to worry about the PG-13 crowd and drawing in the kids for merchandise.
So the character that it mainly follows, his mutant name is Schizophrenia, which I'm not sure if that's a canonical character or not. I'm not familiar with that character, but based on the description I read, he has different personalities that each control a different power. Now,
this makes me mad because that's not schizophrenia.
It's not.
It's multiple personality disorder.
Dissociative identity disorder doesn't sound nearly as cool as schizophrenia when you're naming somebody.
It's a little bit of a mouthful, I guess, is probably the issue.
Schizophrenia is kind of a mouthful, too.
But at least it's one word.
That's true.
You know? And maybe that's the issue there, but, you know... I don't know that
I'm guessing the character was given that nickname by somebody who isn't a mental health person and just said it was that.
I am a giant X-Men fan, but this person is obviously not one of the huge members of any of the groups or offshoot groups. So if he is in the comics, I have never read about him. None of the characters that appear alongside him I have read about. It makes sense from a logistical standpoint because they have one actor who can do, 6-7 different powers, and he can really stretch himself as an actor, talking to himself and responding to the voices in his head, going in and out of the personalities, using the different powers.
Isn't it that Orphan Black show? Isn't that character...
No, Orphan Black is
That's
clones.
where
She's a clone.
Yeah,
but doesn't she?
Multiple
it's the same actor who plays a bunch
Tatiana.
I've never seen the show.
I forget her name, but she plays multiple characters.
Okay.
So he has this opportunity to be a fantastic actor, and because they created a whole bunch of new characters, they can step away from what people know about the comics. My main issue is if you want to do something that hasn't been done before, there's tons of ways to go about it. You could, I listed them to you in a message earlier, so, you can join me for that later. I won't do it here. I'll spend the next 20 minutes rambling.
No, it's all good. Any other big news pieces? Anything else, you guys?
Dan Aykroyd said that the new Ghostbusters movie is both more humorous and more frightening than the original two movies combined.
More frightening I can buy because I was never scared in the first two. So that's
except for the library ghost. That was kind of scary as a young person.
I loved it. It was never scary to me. Okay. But I never felt like it was supposed to be. It was hilarious. I love Ghostbusters. So I could believe that there's scarier movies out there, and it's possible that's the direction they went. Funnier? That's a harder thing for me to believe.
It may be a different kind of funny is what I'm led to believe.
That could be.
Because it's not... The comedians are totally different types of comedians.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
It could be funnier in 2010s. It could be one of the funniest movies of the year. I believe that completely. I'm not sure you can compare 2010 humor with 1980s humor. The Neighbors 2 Sorority Row isn't going to stack up against Trading Places, in my opinion.
They are a different demographic, I think, that they're going for, but I'll take Trading Places any day.
It's worth saying when you hear the Dan Aykroyd say stuff like that is that he has a vested interest in Ghostbusters because he owns much of the name itself and has been obviously involved since the beginning.
Well, he's got
the
a
original
cameo.
writer.
And by the way, this is something important for anybody who doesn't want too much information about the movie. Don't watch the UK trailer because it has some extra footage and ruins at least one cameo. I don't want to give too much away. So,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I read about it. I mean, it's fine. So I knew it was kind of going to be in there. I just didn't know the details. So just something to be aware of.
Okay.
But yeah, Aykroyd has a vested interest in this being a success. If there, he ever wants to maybe write a spinoff because he's always wanted to do a third one himself. If this is successful enough to create a connected universe, so to speak, of Ghostbuster films, like every production company is trying to do now, he wants it to do well.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and I mean, there's never going to be a Ghostbusters 3 at this point.
No.
The hopes for that died when Harold Ramis passed away, unfortunately. But, I mean, he could pen another Ghostbusters
Exactly.
movie. Of course, it's worth saying that the reason the first one was so good was because after Dan Aykroyd wrote it, Harold Ramis and the producer, or the director, Ivan Reitman, they both rewrote pretty much the whole thing because Dan Aykroyd's original script was like they were in different planets in space,
it was like,
and it was so out there.
I mean, as a sci-fi guy, I'd watch that.
I would too, but yeah, it was very much out there.
Ghosts in space.
Why not? You know,
Sorry.
I mean, maybe that's the movie he can make next.
Yeah, there you go. It's gonna be it's gonna be like the Guardians of the Galaxy to the Ghostbusters universe.
I like it.
You guys are very excited for that.
Come on,
I'm okay with it if it happens.
The only other piece I wanted to touch on was kind of just a piece of funny news for me. So I have not yet caught up on Arrow, the CW's Arrow, but I do happen to know that its like largest subreddit basically has been turned into a Daredevil subreddit now because the fans are so angry about the finale of the show
and the whole season altogether. They're not biased.
So well, I mean I haven't seen it yet, right? I'm 11 episodes behind on Arrow. I've caught up on everything else. Arrow's next. But I don't know. I know, Ryan, you kind of poked around there a little bit.
Well, I've been subscribed to that subreddit since I started watching Arrow, and this is as bad as it's ever been. But I mean, you basically go in there, and it's just constant posts about how bad Felicity is, how bad the show is, how everything that is trending downward, how the ratings are down, how Mark Guggenheim is a hack. How all these people are just hating on him. And now, like you said, there's a picture at the top of every subreddit that kind of is an image for whatever the subreddit's about. And it used to be the Arrow logo. Well, now it's the Arrow logo with like the Daredevil logo splattered across it. And it's all memes that are like hinting at the title would be about Arrow, but then when you click the picture, it's like a picture of Matt Murdock doing something.
Right.
So it's very much just ripping apart. And they're doing episode recaps like live. Everybody watches the episode at the same time of Daredevil. So it's
personally that is kind of what we used to do. We were first starting to get behind an Arrow. We'd be like, what should we do? Should we watch Arrow? No, let's watch Daredevil.
You didn't make the wrong decision at all.
Right. So
it's a shame. I mean, you guys know I love Flash. And I love Legends of Tomorrow, and I'm really excited to have Supergirl.
Love Legends of Tomorrow now. It took me a while to ease into it.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, two weeks from now, we'll do our CW Universe episode recapping this past season. So that'll be in 2 weeks.
Plenty to say.
But yeah, I'm sure we all do. We might go over on that one. But all right, so we're about 15 minutes in. It's probably time to hit our two major topics for tonight. So the first one we're going to talk about is Captain America #1, which is a comic book. We are not talking about Civil War, the movie, or anything like that.
Get out your pitchforks.
We're talking comic books. So, spoilers abound at this point forward. If you have not read Captain America #1, if you have not read DC Comics Rebirth #1,
for the record, they were spoiled within the hour.
Yeah, I mean, they were. Captain America was spoiled for me before my local comic book store was even open.
Right.
For the day.
Yeah, the endings of both the comic books we're going to talk about were actually leaked online like 2 days before.
I was lucky that Rebirth was not ruined for me. A couple of pieces were, but the big one for Captain America. So for those who don't know, and for those who want to just know what we're going to be focusing on, at the end of Captain America #1, Cap, of course, says the line, "Hail Hydra," and everybody explodes. Mm-hmm. So, everybody, meaning the readers. This has had some really serious backlash.
That would have been an interesting part of the comic book, though.
Right.
Everybody just exploded as soon as said Hail Hydra.
Very Kingsman-like.
Yeah, I don't know how they could continue that for multiple...
So basically what this comic book shows is that at some point in Steve Rogers' childhood, he's like 8-ish or something, a woman saves him and his mother from his abusive father and basically recruits them into Hydra.
Yes.
Meaning that Steve Rogers has been recruited into Hydra from an adolescent age.
Which means the last 70, 80 years have meant nothing.
So it's pretty big. Now, for those who don't know, the original creators of Captain America are two Jewish guys. I myself am Jewish, and so I do have an opinion about all the people who are now calling him a Nazi.
That is not true.
I don't
Hydra
agree with
is
that.
a terrorist organization that has been linked to other terrorist organizations to get power.
Right. I do not think that Captain America is a Nazi.
They leveraged the Nazi power in the 1940s.
Right.
Red Skull is a Nazi.
Yes.
Hydra is not Nazis.
Right. So now this comic does focus on the white supremacy aspect of Hydra quite a bit. With I'm drawing a blank on the character's name, but the guy who has the bomb vest, Robbie. He obviously those were white supremacists that inducted him. They talked about hate crimes in there as well. So, what do you guys think about this big reveal, twist, change, etc.?
Well, the way it happened, the way it was spoiled for me, I honestly believe that there was something in the comic leading up to it that would make me feel like everything was fine. That I was willing to jump aboard and go with this storyline. That this character is allowed to have issues and troubles and problems and can develop continuously. So I was willing to jump on board and continue reading. However, right before this, he kills somebody. Cap kills a dude, pushes him out of a plane. So one of his followers, like one of his sidekicks, he just kicks right out of a plane. So it's really hard for me to be on Cap's side and say, oh, no, it's just like it was with Bucky. We'll be good. We'll be cool. Let's get through this. This is our dark times, bro. And no, I feel like a lot of people do. I feel betrayed. I feel that I don't want to stick with the comics. I think that the excessiveness of people's reactions is a little overdramatic. There's no need to burn comics, people. No need. This isn't the 1950s. But I kind of want to burn the comic.
No, I mean, there is a point where people, I think, have overreacted. You have every right to be upset and mad about the change. That's obviously your thing. But some people have gone as far as like death threats and things like that, and that's because of social media and the keyboard warriors and the anonymous aspect of things. There's a video game that was supposed to come out next month called No Man's Sky, a game I'm very much looking forward to. It's very exciting. It got pushed a couple of months, and the creator of the game has legitimately gotten death threats like every day since he made that announcement. And it's a video game, people, and this is a comic book. So death threats, I feel like, are probably going too far. Probably shouldn't threaten creators' lives because of fictional material. With that said,
anything you do in comics that is this big, you have to talk it over for months. You have to have follow-ups. This guy, Nick Spencer,
but there's gonna be
did not just spring this on everybody.
But there's going to be another issue. I mean,
right. The
number
people
2
of Marvel
comes out.
know where this is going.
Right.
They know what's going to happen. And every single character in here has been cast in the films before. Every single one. Baron Zemo, Red Skull, and Sharon Carter, and Maria Hill. They're all in the movies. This is connected to the movies somehow. We're seeing it go in a new direction. Probably going to tie in with the new Civil War. Like, it's a big deal.
Oh, you mean Civil War 2?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't really read comic books. I follow the happenings of comic books pretty closely, but I don't actually read them. But one thing I do know about comics is everything that happens is always permanent. That's why Superman is still dead. That's why Iron Man is still evil. That's
Azrael is still Batman.
Right. I mean, obviously, this is going to be permanent, and Cap is going to be Hydra forever. So we should all be very, very upset.
Now, I think that's a really important point. Because we all know this. Cap died not that long ago.
2006.
Bruce Wayne died less than 2 years ago.
2011.
No. Bruce Wayne died during the New 52, like a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
It was when they made Jim Gordon Batman, and it was.
Oh, I was talking about the time where they made Dick Grayson Batman.
Oh, well, yeah.
Dick Bats.
Dick Bats.
He's been dead before. He's died a couple of times.
Right.
I mean, this happens a lot.
Remember that time that he murdered a bunch of people and then he did it in a movie too and people lost their crap over it?
Yeah, well, we're not going to go there. But no, to Ryan's point though, comic book stories change things constantly. Mm-hmm. Characters are killed and resurrected. Their powers are changed. Their costumes are changed. Their allegiances are changed. Their genders are changed. This happens all the time. People freak out every time, and then everything usually ends up being fine.
Well, like you said, people have a right to be upset and a right to be angry. In fact, I would venture so far as to say that Marvel wants you to be angry and wants you to hate this, because then you're going to buy the next comic book. You're going to care about the character, obviously, and that's what they want. And everybody loves Captain America. The movies have been great and everything. So what do you do?
I wouldn't have picked this issue up if it hadn't been such a big game changer.
And see, that's what they want.
I'm a DC guy mainly. I read Daredevil and I read Star Wars.
And now you're reading Captain America.
Those are the only Marvel titles I was reading before this big news broke. And I was like, all right, I gotta go check out and see what all the hubbub is about. They won that. The marketing scheme was perfect for that because it gained readers.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you have a character that's as idealistic and perfect as Captain America and is loved, what do you do to make their story interesting? You put them up against their darkest, put them in the darkest situation that they're ever going to have possibly. And when they overcome that, then they're going to be even stronger than they were in the beginning, and you're going to be that much more attached to them as a reader. Mm-hmm. So it's all part of a larger story arc. Don't freak out. We all know that he's not going to be, maybe he'll be. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but it's going to be resolved.
He could be brainwashed.
He could be a Skrull. We don't know. It's Marvel.
Steve Rogers.
I mean, he could be a double agent. Now, I believe that
he could
that
be
was
super deep in.
I believe that a little bit more before I read it and found out that he was recruited as a kid.
Yeah.
Versus being recruited at some point later in his adult life after being captured or something in the military, or as Captain America. But double agents are things that happen. Triple agents are things that happen. Yeah. I mean, watch a James Bond movie, right?
Read anything about Black Widow.
Yeah, right.
Watch the movies with Black Widow. She's playing a lot of sides in those too.
So it's not hard for me to believe that brainwashing. It is a comic book. That stuff happens all the time.
I mean, that's the whole story behind Bucky.
Yeah, right. And everybody still wants to love that bromance between Cap and Bucky, so that's, I feel like this is going to get resolved. Will it get resolved in June? Probably not.
No, because you'll get more information in June, and then you'll be able to go, well, maybe it's not exactly what I thought it was. Maybe I should take that death threat back or say sorry to the author.
Nobody says sorry on the internet.
No, that's not a thing at all. Unless they're saying it sarcastically because they're sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry you're a fan of XYZ.
Right, I'm sorry you misunderstood me.
Or I'm sorry that you found that offensive. Or...
Yeah, I wasn't actually going to kill you.
But people should be prepared that this story could go on for a little bit of time. I mean, the life and death of Superman went on for months across several different series in DC.
The last Civil War storyline, the 2006 one, lasted for a year. There was over 100 different tie-ins. I know because I spent 10 years buying every single one of them. So that if that's what this is part of, and back then every series was part of it. So
they've said that he's going to be in Civil War 2 and plays a big part in it. So I mean, obviously, we're going to have some sort of resolution before that, I imagine.
Yeah.
Civil War 2 starts next month.
Oh, does it? Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll at least have more information before then.
Maybe that's the driving force of it, because he's going to split that type of divide. There's people who are going to be on his side and believe that they can either save him or he's specifically knowing what he's doing.
Right.
Right? And there's going to be people who are like, no, we have to take him down. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Again, I'm not the biggest Marvel reader in the world, so...
We'll find out.
We will. Any other thoughts on Captain America #1, Hail Hydra?
Relax, people.
Seriously.
Yeah, okay, so
take your Ritalin and
there are people digging up Elseworld, DC, Earth 10 images of Batman as a Nazi just to prove... That
Batman was a Nazi at one point?
Yeah, that Batman was a Nazi at one point. It doesn't matter.
There's comic book panels of Captain America holding up a shield with the Nazi logo on it.
From a long time ago. Yeah. I can't remember the decade, but it is golden age comic book stuff.
The way that the DC and Marvel universes work is that they have many different Earths. Marvel and DC even recognize each other. DC has Earths 1 through 600. Marvel has 601 through 1200.
And isn't the main one 616, right?
In Marvel, yes.
In Marvel, yeah.
That's where they are. And DC is currently on Earth 4? Something like that? Earth 5?
Well, In Rebirth, I don't know. Now with Rebirth, I don't know which number Earth is the main Earth. I'll have to get back to you on that.
You're poor DC.
They didn't specify in Rebirth #1, so
put your pitchforks and torches down. It's not a life or death situation.
Look, there's Red Sun, which is Superman as a communist. It's if he had landed in Soviet Russia instead of in the United States.
There's no reason why we could believe that Superman's loyalties were to America because he loved America. And only that reason. He grew up here. That's why he loved America. If he grew up anywhere else, like Venezuela or Cuba or...
I look at the Red Sun stuff kind of like an alternate history. I like alternate history. It's theoretical. It's kind of fun to think about, what if something had just gone slightly the other way.
The difference is between that and this is the internet wasn't as vocal then.
Sure.
Social media wasn't as angry.
Could you imagine the life and death of Superman if the first time it had ever happened was this year?
Oh my gosh.
What that would have been handled like instead of in, 94 or whatever?
Yeah.
Was it 94?
Give or take.
I think the ultimate thing about this is that fandom is broken. People are too attached to what they love to let it develop. And, back in the day when we hated what the TVs or movies or books were doing, we would write fan fiction. Now we just send death threats.
Yeah.
It's gotten out of hand.
And we all love Captain America at this table. We've
Yeah.
enjoyed his movies, whether we've read his comic books or not. We love the character. So when we're telling you to calm down, it's from a place of love because we love the character too. So we don't want him to be a Hydra agent any more than you do. So
and remember this, because it's a comic book, if for some reason the storyline doesn't go well,
If it
and
fails
and people don't like
sales
it,
are
and
awful.
they'll reboot it.
yeah, Barry Allen will run back in time, save his mother, condense everything down, and make it...
They'll do another reboot. There'll be a new #1, and everything will be fine because it is a comic book. And
That's what happened.
Look, comic books are very important to me too. So I like good stories, and there have been plenty of bad ones that I have had to wait through for them to finish. This might be one of those, but we don't know yet. It's been one issue.
Either way, Nick Spencer is getting his name out there as a comic
Yeah, hell of a way to start your run.
And I guarantee you he's going to get more work because of this.
Yeah, that's very, very likely. All right, so let us know your thoughts on Captain America #1. You can comment on the post. You can comment on iTunes. You can go on Twitter and Facebook at Grid Daily and give us a shout out. Let us know what you think about that. And now we're going to move on to DC Universe Rebirth #1, which was written by Jeff Johns, who I am a huge fan of.
This is the official end of the New 52.
It is the end of the New 52, but it is not, and I want to stress this, not a reboot.
Okay.
It is not a reboot. In fact, the very first page says, before you read this, make sure you read Justice League #50 and Superman #52.
Right.
This is a continuation, and Johns describes it as a course correction, but it is not a reboot by any means.
Now, Jeff Johns, let's just get this out of the way, has said that as far as he can plan, this is his last comic right here.
For the foreseeable future.
He has gotten control of the DCEU
right,
at this
the
moment.
movie and TV kind of media universe.
So as long as that course is laid out, he is not writing comics.
It's unlikely, yeah. Now, he did write the Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps #1.
That's not as epic.
Yeah, this is the big thing. This is 80 pages. He said it took him, I think it was like 7 months to write all of this. Rebirth is a very important word for him. He wrote Green Lantern Rebirth, which brought Hal back to life, and Flash Rebirth, which brought Barry Allen back to life. Rebirth is very important to him as a term. He kind of feels some ownership of that after reading some interviews about him, and so this is kind of a big deal. For those of you who don't know, a few years back there was a storyline called Flashpoint. DC did one of their animated films called The Flashpoint Paradox. You should watch it. It's great.
It's pretty good.
And basically it's about what would have happened if Barry went back in time and saved his mother from dying so she lived, and it drastically altered the timeline. Instead of Bruce's parents dying, Bruce is the one who dies. His dad becomes a really lethal, violent Batman, and his mom becomes the Joker. Wonder Woman and Aquaman nearly destroy the world.
they become the leaders of Atlantis and Themyscira, respectively, and their forces aim to conquer, and eventually they have to make a deal and cross paths. Well, Mira is mad that they made a biblical deal, tries to kill Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman kills Mira because she's Wonder Woman, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it's intense. I mean, Barry doesn't have his powers. He's no longer the Flash.
Superman is kidnapped and hidden away.
Away from the sun, yeah, he's like this weird, thinly...
Which is kind of what they reused that a bit in New 52's Earth 2 for Val Zod.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's dark. It's really pretty dark. Well, when that was resolved, and Barry Allen was put back as the Flash, and the world was kind of set right, so to speak, there were changes. And they were basically changes that were never mentioned. They were never really discussed. They were just... things changed, and they were forgotten about. Specifically, the character Wally West more or less ceased to exist as a character in the DC universe.
No, really, what they were trying to do with the New 52 was just focus on characters that were going to be in the movies in the foreseeable future. They weren't trying to forget Wally West. However, they kind of did.
See, I didn't, as a non-comic book reader, I've watched Flashpoint Paradox and I enjoyed it, but I didn't realize, I thought that was like a one-off, like, what-if story. I didn't realize that, until I was reading articles, actually set up the New 52 and basically condensed all the timelines, made the heroes like new heroes that have been acting for less than 5 years, something like that. I had no idea. I thought it was just this cool animated thing.
Yeah, and most of the DC animated features are one-offs like
That's
that.
Probably why
they're their own stories, like the trilogy that they're currently in the middle of working on. But yeah, they've rarely tied directly back into the comic books. People forget that the New 52 felt like a reboot, and it technically really was, but it was also just the effects of Flashpoint. It was kind of it was almost like the way what J.J. Abrams used in the Star Trek universe. You alter the timeline. It's kind of a reboot, but it's really a sequel.
Pretty good. What, 30 minutes before he mentioned Star
Trek? I know,
Trek?
36 minutes before a Star Trek reference, but I felt like that was a good parallel.
The difference between DC and Marvel is a lot of the times when DC wants to restart their numberings, when they want to press the refresh button, they'll come up with a storyline to do that, whereas Marvel doesn't. They're like, okay, Siege is ending, we're going to start all of our books over again, and it'll be called the Heroic Age, or whatever they want to do.
Yeah, usually something pretty big has to happen in the DC universe. And what's interesting about Rebirth, Action Comics and Detective Comics are actually going back to their original numbering scheme prior to the New 52, with their 52 issues added into those numbers, which means that those two are still in the 900s and have not really been reset, which is kind of cool for people who are longtime collectors of those two running series. But really what Rebirth focuses on, for those who haven't read it and are curious, most of the story follows Wally West.
He's trapped in the Speed Force.
And he's been lost to time, so to speak, and he's trying to get his way back. Constantly going to people who he thinks will remember him.
Because that's all that it takes. The Speed Force has him until somebody remembers him.
Basically, someone has to grab him from the Speed Force.
It's like Freddy Krueger, basically.
Yeah.
It's similar. It's very much what they did in The Flash on the CW towards the end of the season. And someone has to know that it's you and kind of connect you to the real world again.
Does he have a bladed hand? A little glove with blades on it?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
But he can just shake it and phase it through stuff.
Right.
So
he could
that old Flash trick.
That old, yeah. Now, it's actually, I thought it was a really powerful story. He eventually finds Barry, and Barry does remember him. And for me, it was a pretty emotional moment. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Did you cry?
I did not.
I was good.
I might have if it was an animated feature. I might have
cried. Yeah.
Reading, that's never happened.
You look like you cried just talking about how beautiful this was.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
I was fine.
Well, what does that tell you, people? Now, his story is kind of interesting because they also explain how now there's two Wally Wests, two different characters, two different ages, two different groups all together. Basically, the Rebirth is now going to have a Titans and a Teen Titans, both different rosters, different age groups of characters.
That's not anything new, for the record.
Now.
Like, they've had those two separate comics for quite some time.
Running at the same time?
Yes.
But they haven't been since Flashpoint.
No, they were going during Blackest Night, though,
Right.
which was right before Flashpoint.
Right. So this is kind of the reintroduction of those relationships.
Right.
After Flashpoint, characters like Green Arrow, and Black Canary, they weren't really together anymore. Mira and Aquaman weren't together anymore. Rebirth is starting to set some of those things back to the pre-Flashpoint setting.
Some of those characters need the other half, I feel like, and we'll get into that, the whole CW part of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what's Green Arrow without Black Canary?
I think
the most interesting storylines have both of them.
I agree.
Mira's not going to hold her own without Aquaman at this point. She's a very interesting character, but I mean, she's an undersea school marm. Let's come on.
But the relationships are important. It felt like, and John's kind of alluded to this in one of the interviews I read, it kind of felt like a lot of the soul of DC was lost after Flashpoint because all of these relationships were just wiped away.
Yeah, things people cared about.
Yeah.
People care about those relationships, whether they want to admit it or not. Comic books are a giant soap opera, so when two people are...
I mean, there's a huge chunk of people that were very upset that Barbara Gordon was walking again because Oracle had meant so much as a handicapped or disabled, whatever you want to call it, hero.
Yeah, that change was a big change.
They were probably really mad about Felicity.
We're not going to go there.
Okay.
Now, so for me, this is pretty cool. They're resetting a lot of stuff. They're giving this opportunity of kind of going forward from the original point that they were at prior to Flashpoint. But what's interesting about this is that this issue basically says that it wasn't what Barry did from Flashpoint that caused these changes. It was an actual action taken by an external force. And that's the bookends of Rebirth #1, which is this unknown person working on a watch, right? This is kind of, does anybody want to talk about that? I'm talking a lot, so I feel like you guys
Dr. Manhattan is just sitting on Mars, pressing buttons and screwing with Earth.
He flat out says the name Adrian, and Adrian is Ozymandias, who is the villain of Watchmen. Batman finds the comedian's blood-soaked smiley face pin
deep inside the Batcave.
So they are merging what has been kept as a separate, not universe, but just like an
totally disconnected.
Very disconnected. It was never said one way or another that Watchmen happened on Earth 2 and this one happened, like Wonder Woman exists on Earth 1. I always felt like they happened on the same, but you could never watch the same stories. It was like, pardon the analogy, it's the best I can come up with right now, but it's like Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. You assume they happen in all the same world, but they just never meet each other.
See, for me, I felt like Watchmen was kept more separate from DC than even Marvel was. Because there have been times where Marvel and DC characters have shared series together.
Not for a very long time.
But it's happened.
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan has shown up in DC. He killed somebody. I can't remember their name. I'll have to look it up.
The Watchmen have showed up.
Before.
And after the movie, they did the After Watchmen sequels where a couple of the DC characters popped in here.
But not a lot.
No.
And so I always felt like it was almost decided that Watchmen just wasn't part. It was a separate story, totally separate.
Well, I think that's because they knew that what Alan Moore created was brilliant, but they didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know how to grasp it. They had no idea how to market it or what to do with it. They were just like, no, this story needs to be out there. We just don't know how.
It was also kind of picking apart, when Watchmen was written, it was also done to kind of pick apart superhero tropes and things like that. So, I mean, it was
Night Owl is clearly
Batman.
Dr. Manhattan is clearly Superman.
Yeah, it was,
So what are your opinions about this being the first major story arc for Rebirth?
I think when I heard about it, I was really excited that, maybe I get to see Batman and Rorschach duking it out, or like, not that would be much of a fight, but, or Ozymandias, fighting somebody from DC, anybody really, that would be cool, or, the Question against
the Question of Rorschach would be good.
Rorschach, yeah.
That'd be weird.
That would be
Batman and Owlman.
But Jeff Johns has actually said
Night Owl.
He said Owlman, I said Nightman from Always Sunny. I'm no better.
But Jeff Johns has actually come out and said that we're not going to see Rorschach and Batman running into each other or anything like that. So it's more. I think it was more just kind
as of right now, that is not the plan. Yeah. But it's heavily hinted at that Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan are the puppet masters of the certain upsetting aspects of Flashpoint.
Now, what's really interesting is John said that the overall, because he didn't want to give anything away, so at the time he was saying it's not a villain, it's an antagonist. Now, what do you think he means by making that differentiation?
Well, it's the same thing that was in the original Watchmen graphic novel. I mean, Ozymandias was he was doing what he thought was right.
He had dolls, and he had the most success out of all of them. Everybody loved him. It's the difference between the Red Skull and Bucky. You want to root for Bucky to get better. You want to root for Cap to split Skull's head. Just
because you have a protagonist and an antagonist doesn't mean that the antagonist is a bad guy and the protagonist is a good guy. They could both be good guys. It just means the antagonist is going to be antagonizing the protagonist. You know, I mean, it's.
Well, I guess the question is, where do you draw that line, though? Right? Is it if you're doing something bad but you're doing it for a good reason, does that just mean you're not a villain? You're just the antagonist because you think you're doing the right thing?
I think we all have our own personal lines where we would consider ourselves the antagonist or the protagonist of different stories. We all have those lines that we would or would not cross. However, I guess right now it's just up to where Jeff Johns is going to draw the line, or where everybody who is following Jeff Johns' storyline is going to draw the line. I have always pictured the Watchmen separated from DC, so it's interesting to see them interact with, the childhood heroes that represent truth, justice, and the American way, right, versus the Who Watches the Watchmen. And I mean,
it's that dichotomy that I'm really looking forward to, though. Is I feel like I'm hoping that that's the point that they're trying to make,
right? To
show that, because a lot of people have said, and rightfully so, that DC's been a little dark recently. And that's true. I mean,
there is nothing darker than the Watchmen, though.
That was very dark.
When you break it down, like Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman can kill out of passion or whatever, but nothing is darker than Watchmen.
And I think that's the point, though, is the whole saying about you can't have the light without the darkness kind of thing. That the Watchmen will show the light in the standard DC universe.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Because the Watchmen, by comparison, will make the Justice League look a lot brighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do you guys have any other thoughts then about the Watchmen crossover that they're doing here?
If this is any indication that they're bringing the Watchmen back to film.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I didn't even consider that.
It's very telling. Both of the comic companies are really focused on what's going to bring them in the most money, and that's the movies. So they're going to do stuff that reflects it.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not
see
saying
that happening.
Right.
It would be interesting.
I don't think Alan Moore's going to sign on for that.
He didn't sign on for the first one either, so...
Do you see they're bringing, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen TV shows getting closer and closer to actually happening?
I don't even know what to say about that.
Right?
All right. Well, there's some other changes that are kind of a big deal.
Wonder Woman has a brother.
Wonder Woman has a twin brother.
What is up with that?
So for those...
That is the most intriguing part of this whole thing for me, because the Themyscira, every time they've birthed a man, they've sent him free. So what happened? What?
So here's what's really interesting. So for those who don't read Justice League, leading to the end of the New 52 Justice League run was a story arc called The Dark Side War. And it was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed a lot of it, but it was very intense and kind of all over the place with characters getting crazy powers. Batman ended up with the Mobius chair because what Batman needs is more knowledge.
That's right.
3 Jokers.
God.
He asks, Jokers. He does. I was going to get to that because we were talking about Wonder Woman.
But I interrupted you.
But, that's fine. We'll get back to that. But
he asks the chair and says there are 3 Jokers.
Sort of, yeah. Well, do you want to talk about Wonder Woman or do you want to talk about the Joker?
Oh, my God. Do you see what I deal with?
So what happens is there's this prophecy that has to do with this chosen one. And Darkseid's daughter believes that it is Steve Trevor because he was supposedly the first male to ever set foot on Themyscira. Turns out, though, that he is not the first, that it was actually Wonder Woman's twin brother, and nobody knows what happened to him. He's supposed to be out in the real world somewhere, but we don't know if he knows who he is. Nobody knows where he is or anything like that.
Seems more likely to tie into the movie universe for me than The Watchmen.
So that was really interesting. A big change because, Wonder Woman has had some slightly different origins. Sometimes she's made from clay, for example. This is obviously not that.
Sometimes she's sand, sometimes
she was just birthed. In fact, they actually have that scene in a couple issues in the New 52. People were upset about that in the New 52, by the way, that she wasn't from clay. But, they are at least doing something with that change because you can't have a random male twin.
That was also made at the same time out of clay.
Yeah, exactly like that doesn't work.
And it was struck by lightning.
So at least that's going somewhere, whether it was intended to or not. 5 years ago is so that's kind of cool.
There's a lot of stuff.
But then there's the Joker thing.
Yes.
So Batman's in the Mobius chair. He asks the chair who the Joker is, and the chair responds, "There are 3."
Which one?
And Rebirth has this really great moment in it where Batman's in the cave and he's got his big giant screen up and he's got 3 different Joker pictures.
And they all have different facial recognition. It's very clear, different bone structure.
They're completely different styles.
Yes.
Right? You've got the Cesar Romero Joker. You've got
he has a mustache painted white.
You've got the Killing Joke Joker.
And you've got the Suicide Squad Joker.
Yeah, kind of the New 52 Joker. Is kind of what he really looks.
He looks a lot like Jared Leto's Joker.
Jared Leto's Joker
looks like a 14-year-old just discovered Hot Topic.
It's the New 52
and got
Joker.
A tattoo.
It's supposed to be the New 52 Joker that Bruce died with last year. So it's really interesting because it's 3 very different versions of the character. So that'll be a big point of interest for Batman moving forward. That's what he's obsessed with now because he doesn't understand what that could possibly mean.
So it was in a small panel. Very small, very completely disregarded. It wouldn't have jumped out to me had I not seen the internet rage about it. But apparently Aqualad is gay. And people lost their cool.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I actually missed that completely in the issue.
It's a kid staring at an aquarium while his mom berates him about him liking boys being weird, and he's like, well, it's not boys, it's a boy, he's my boyfriend. And it's
actually I remember that now.
And it's just who I am.
I didn't even think about
and
it.
That's what it was. And that was the first thing that got spoiled for me from Rebirth was that Aqualad is gay. And I don't even know that that's Aqualad. I don't know that that's Kaldor. I just know it's a black teenage kid who just was talking to his mom.
Yeah, that was so insignificant that I actually had forgotten that it was even in the story. I mean, there's so much happening in this that
in 80 pages, there should be a lot happening.
Yeah, and there is. But that was so minor to me that my brain just glossed over it completely. Yeah. It didn't even occur to me. So, I guess we'll see if we read, whatever series he's in, which I assume is Teen Titans, but I didn't look at the roster.
Or Titans or Aquaman. He's going to be in any of the 3.
Okay. Historically, I haven't read the Titans or Teen Titans stuff on a regular basis, so I'm curious.
That's fair. Me neither.
Any other topics on Rebirth that you guys want to talk about? We're starting to wind down on time. Are you excited to see anything possibly change back to something you thought was missing, or?
No, I think both of these are very good examples, both Captain America and DC Rebirth, of maximizing the publicity from the movies and translating it into new stuff that the comics haven't done before. That's a issue I have with a lot of comic books lately. They just want to copy the movies. Civil War II is a big deal about that. They just want to have the name connection to get the sales, and I understand that. But these movies are based off of the comics ultimately, and there needs to be new storylines to keep the movies going. I want both to keep going. So these are good directions with that.
Wally West's new suit looked cool.
I like it a lot.
I like a lot of the new costumes.
Yeah.
They look
awesome.
Awesome.
Wonder Woman's costume is probably my favorite Wonder Woman costume.
It's really good.
For a long time.
She got it towards the end of the New 52, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of the movie one.
I like Cap's new suit, too.
It's a little cheesy for me, but again, I don't read Captain America,
it looks very reminiscent of the Age of Ultron suit with the red edition.
It does look similar.
It reminds me a little bit more of like the 80s Captain America movie.
Oh,
I always prefer kind of the stealth suit, Winter Soldier, like blue.
Winter Soldier
blue and
was
white.
awesome.
That's,
yeah.
Without
was
the
cool.
red. The red just kind of makes it cheesy, I think. But
I think the Winter Soldier version of Cap's suit was my favorite I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the Harley Commando look.
Yeah, that's a specific series. She has a different look in another series.
Is she still going with the rollerball thing?
It's different now. She's not really the roller derby anymore. It's a little different.
Okay.
Batman got a new look towards the end of the New 52 as well. I think it's fantastic.
Is that the one with the orange?
Yeah, the outline around the bat symbol. I thought it was yellow, but
Martian
for
Manhunter
long-time
has
readers,
a new look,
I'm colorblind.
and I like it.
Supergirl's new look, I think, is really good. It's a little bit more classic. She's had a similar look in the past. I'm trying to remember when.
There's a new female Green Lantern, which
she looks really cool.
Jessica Cruz.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about her. She's another. The last two Green Lanterns now have been very unique characters. Simon Baz, if you haven't read about him, he was the first Muslim superhero in the DC world, and he gets a ring. And he's the first Lantern ever to actually will someone back to life. He has a family member who dies in the hospital, and he's so upset by it, he literally wills the person back to life.
So from this giant picture, it looks like Spoiler and Wally West and Huntress all have very new costumes, and they all look really cool.
Jessica Cruz's character, it's unclear whether or not she dies, but she basically gives up her life to save the Flash when she's being controlled by Power Ring, which is from Earth 3. They're villains.
Fun fact, I went to school with a Jessica Cruz, and she put paper in my eye in the 4th grade.
Now you know. Anyway,
probably the same person, really.
Yeah.
She gets between...
It must have been Earth 3, though.
She wouldn't have gotten a Green Lantern ring.
She gets between death and Barry, literally between death and Barry, and so she supposedly dies. And
How did death catch Barry?
Ooh.
Death almost catches Barry.
She gets between them.
But how did she move fast enough to get in between them? Because Barry's so fast.
She could have teleported.
This sounds like plot-induced stupidity to me.
She just got between the two of them, and Death.
So Barry was just like stopping, waiting for Death to catch up to him, and then she jumped in the middle. That seems kind of silly.
It's a little complicated.
Flash has outrun Death a bunch of times. It's not like it's anything new.
Yeah, but Flash wasn't himself a few moments before this. He was actually the god of Death a few minutes before this. It's kind of complicated.
Sounds like it.
You'll have to read the last few issues of Justice League if you really want to get all that.
You're not going to do that.
Anyway, so she dies, but she still gets a ring and is brought back, and it's pretty cool actually.
So is she leading her own series?
She is. She's
definitely the face of the Green Lanterns that I've seen. Like
her and Simon Baz are in a series together called Green Lanterns, plural. And there's another series called Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, which will follow Hal and John and Guy. And,
facing off against the threat of Sinestro's army of Yellow Lanterns.
So is this the first time the female Green Lantern has been a lead in a Green Lantern?
This is the first time there's a female Green Lantern.
From Earth.
I was going to say it's been implied probably that there's a lot.
This is the first time there's a lead.
Aricia,
This is the first time there's a lead female Green Lantern and a Earth female Green Lantern.
So that's awesome. And her suit looks really cool. I really like it.
They do make the joke in that Justice League issue that does this sector really need another Green Lantern? Because now there have been 7 Earth Green Lanterns.
And only one of them is a woman.
I guess there are 5 that are currently active, so to speak, because Alan Scott's on a different Earth and Kyle is the White Lantern.
I would like to collect Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. Please add that to my pull list.
Well, at the moment, we're getting everything in Rebirth because of that. I'm drawing a blank on the website that we have a subscription to.
I'm good with it.
Because it's all bundled. It's like half off. So
do you want the Hellblazer?
I
read
would
some other stuff.
Take it.
Constantine is coming in with that.
So. I didn't realize he was getting his own series.
Yeah, Suicide Squad, Deathstroke, but nobody cares. You mean Deadpool?
Deadpool's much better.
Right, Deadpool's better.
All right, so I think we're kind of getting off on a tangent here. So I think that's going to be it for us this week. Join us next week. Next week we will be reviewing X-Men Apocalypse.
Hopefully I'll have seen it by then.
So
otherwise it's going to be...
Hopefully Ryan will have seen it by then,
see.
or we'll spoil it for him. But of course there will be spoilers in that. In the following week we will recap the CWDC universe, which will also include some Supergirl talk since she's moving to the CW.
I have seen that already, so I'm one step ahead.
Yeah, so that's good. As always, you can catch us on our various social media outlets. We have Ryan.
Buster Props on everything.
Super Sirens on everything.
And you can reach all of us at griddaily.com or at griddaily on Twitter and Facebook. We actually have at griddaily on Twitter now. I'm excited about that. No underscore or anything. So please follow us and like us and comment and tweet and things. And you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes at screen-heroes.com. It's a direct link. Please subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review. It's still the #1 place for podcasts. So if you drop us a review, we promise that we will give you a shout out on the podcast. And last but not least,